You know, for decades, Hollywood basically ran on a pretty predictable formula. But in an age of endless streaming, YouTube, and social media, well, that formula's kind of broken. So what's next? Well, two of the industry's biggest stars, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, who've been navigating this crazy world for over 25 years, they think they have an answer. Let's break down their playbook.
All right, so here's what we're diving into. We're going to look at the massive shift in how we all watch movies, break down the old high-stakes business model, and see how streaming and YouTube just changed everything. And then we'll get into Affleck and Damon's radical new plan to fix it before looking at why they believe the human element will always win. So first up, we have to get our heads around just how profoundly our relationship with movies has changed. I mean, it is a huge generational leap that even Hollywood's biggest stars are seeing right in their own homes.
Yeah, Matt Damon just nails what it used to be like, right? He remembers his youth as a time when going to the movies, that was the event. Every weekend, no questions asked. But flash forward to today, and Ben Affleck is pretty honest about it. For his own kids, a movie has to fight for attention with a whole universe of digital content. Going to the theater just isn't the default anymore.
Okay, so to really get why that shift is such a big deal, we need to rewind and look at the old system. This is the world Affleck and Damon came up in during that indie movie boom of the 90s. And back then, putting a movie in theaters wasn't just a creative choice. It was a massive financial bet.
And this right here is the brutal math, as Ben Affleck lays it out. Imagine you make a movie for $25 million. Great, but then you have to spend another $25 million just to advertise it so people know it exists. And then, of all the money that comes in from ticket sales, you only get about half. The other half goes to the movie theaters. So just to break even on your $50 million investment, the box office has to hit $100 million. The risk is just enormous.
And this slide really shows you the two completely different worlds we're talking about. Theatrical is a total high-wire act. You're trying to get literally everyone to show up on one specific weekend for what Matt Damon calls a church-like shared experience. Streaming, on the other hand, it has lower costs to get it out there, but it's fighting a totally different battle, the war for your attention, against an infinite library of stuff, usually watched on a phone while you're probably scrolling another app.
So, that brings us to the forces that completely rewrote the rulebook. Theatrical releases just got riskier and riskier, and streaming platforms swooped in, not just as a new place to watch things, but as the new center of the entire entertainment universe.
This is such a simple idea, but it's incredibly profound. For 100 years, a movie's biggest rival was, well, the other movie playing in the theater down the hall. But today, that battlefield is infinitely bigger.
Because let's be real, the competition for a 2-hour film today isn't just another movie. It's a 10-minute YouTube deep dive on something you're curious about. It's a 30-second TikTok that makes you laugh. It's a few hours of Fortnite with your friends. Or it's just mindlessly scrolling Instagram. The fight is for every single second of a person's time. And that puts this immense pressure on filmmakers to hook you, like, immediately.
And all that pressure, it's actually changing the art itself. Affleck points out that streamers, they're armed with all this data, and they give notes like, hey, can we get a big action scene in the first 5 minutes? Or can you repeat the plot a few times for people who might be looking at their phones? It really makes you wonder, right? Is data-driven engagement starting to dictate how stories are told?
So, facing all this chaos, Affleck and Damon aren't just sitting around complaining about the good old days. Nope. Instead, these two longtime friends, who've seen it all, have built a company designed to create a more sustainable, more fair model for this new era. They're trying to fix the system from the inside.
Now, to understand their plan, you have to know this term, below the line. This refers to the hundreds of incredible artists and craftspeople who are the absolute backbone of any production. But historically, they've been treated more like hired hands, not as creative partners who get to share in a film's success. So their solution is this really clear 3-step model. First, value the crew. As Damon says, these are the people who make a real tangible difference in a movie's quality. Second, share the success. They've created a formal written-down bonus system tied to how well the movie does. So if the movie wins, everybody wins. And third, they're building a template, a plug-and-play system so any other filmmaker who says they want to do the same thing can just do it. And this isn't charity. It's a belief that a valued, invested crew will simply make a better movie.
So finally, as Hollywood starts looking at technologies like AI, Affleck and Damon are making a powerful argument. They believe the future of great filmmaking doesn't lie in code, but in the one thing an algorithm can never, ever replicate: lived human experience.
Now, Affleck sees AI as a really powerful tool,
Of course, it can create a realistic North Pole without the insane cost of an expedition, or it can handle super tedious rendering tasks. Its strength is efficiency, not artistry. But true art, they argue, that comes from the messy, complicated, and deeply personal stuff of just being human.
And to prove this point, Damon tells this absolutely incredible story about actor Dwayne Johnson. For one super emotional scene, Johnson channeled the memory of how his alcoholic father used to talk to him, and he combined that with the memory of watching his mother pull a hospital sheet over her head after a cancer diagnosis. He literally merged two separate, profound personal traumas into one breathtaking performance. And this gets right to the heart of Affleck's point. There is no AI in the world that can do that. That is an artist. That is a piece of art that comes from a real, lived human experience.
So, as the very definition of a movie keeps changing, their big bet is on the irreplaceable value of the human touch, both behind the camera and in the stories being told. Which really leaves us with this question to think about. In this world of endless, algorithm-driven content, what's the one human story that you believe no machine could ever tell?